Okay, good evening, everyone. Good afternoon. It's David Schmidt, and welcome to the first product training webinar of the year. I hope that you all had a very happy, healthy, and safe holiday season and a great new year, and you're as excited as I am about the upcoming year. Of course, we're about to kick off our event in Las Vegas that is going to be coming up next weekend, a weekend of the 24th, 25th, and 26th at the Westgate Hotel. Some of you might know that as the place where Elvis Presley was so famous for performing. And that used to be the Hilton. So in any case, we're going to be there. I think we're just about sold out at that event. We have about 700 people that are coming from all over the world, and looking forward to having a great event there. Then, of course, we are heading off to Germany in March, and we have a full tour of Asia that's scheduled during the month of May, and a lot of other things besides that. But for now, we are going to be starting off our product training, and many of you may have been on the webinar we had last week with Jim Caldwell and Paula Shaw. We had almost 900 people in attendance, and I was revealing some of the new clinical research and clinical studies that we have completed on X39. And of course, Dr. Melinda Connor and Dr. Gaetan Chevalier are going to be speaking at our conference in Las Vegas, and I can tell you that's going to be a real treat. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing both of them present. So tonight, actually, you are going to get a sneak peek at one of the brain maps that was performed by Dr. Chevalier using a new type of EEG technology, and you'll be seeing for yourself just how dramatic that change was in the brain in only 3 weeks and 6 weeks of using X39. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. I think you're going to find the product training very, very interesting this evening. Okay. So, of course, for those of you that are new, we are a science-based company, and this is the science section of the website. So the way that you get there is you go to the products button at the top and just scroll down and click on science. So it's easy enough. And some of the things that we cover in this section of the website are things like different patents that we've gotten. I finished out the year with 94 patents. And another 20 or so that are pending. So I would say 2019, that finished off really great for me personally. We also have studies that have been featured, such as research that we've done on X39. We list our published studies, and then there's many, many scientific papers. This section on LifeWave research are studies that we didn't publish, so we could get them out quickly. And we have over 80 clinical studies, actually, that we have done over the past 18 years or so. So one of the, what might be kind of interesting, since we were talking about brain mapping last week, is that we start off and actually go back in time to 2006. And that's when we released our Carnosine patch. And in 2011, Tom and Helen Budzinski, they were married, and they were interested in doing a clinical study on the use of Carnosine to reverse age-related cognitive decline. Now, before we get into this study and some of the reasons for this and so forth, first, a general question. At what age do you think people start to decline in their mental health? In other words, our ability to remember things, the speed at which we process information, our reaction time. When does the brain begin to decline in these capacities? Well, the answer might surprise you, and I promise that this is going to be the only bad news I'm going to give you this evening. So here's an article that was published in the Neurobiology of Aging. It's a manuscript by Dr. Timothy Salthouse, And we can see that the conclusion that he came to by looking at various studies is that they come to the conclusion that age-related cognitive decline begins in healthy adults as early as your 20s. So this is rather shocking, because I think the general thought might be in the public, well, you know, people start to lose their memory maybe in their 50s or their 60s. You know, we think of it maybe in that kind of terms, but actually here, there's a number of reasons why people start to decline in their ability to process information as early as their 20s. And what this tells us is that we need to be paying attention to first the foundation of our health so we can preserve our brain function. So what do I mean by that? Well, the first thing is, you know, are you getting at least 7 or 8 hours of sleep each evening? If you're sleeping less than 6 hours, your body can accumulate something called a beta amyloid 2 protein. And this is common in people with Alzheimer's disease. So meaning if you're sleeping less than 6 hours a night, you make yourself more prone to Alzheimer's. So we need to get more sleep, and plus there's many good reasons to want to sleep. Secondly, diet. Now, one of the things that happens as we age is that the brain begins to shrink, and our need for the essential fatty acid omega-3 DHA goes up. And fish like salmon are rich in EPA and DHA, so you can certainly get this naturally, or you can supplement with algae oil or with fish oil. But getting enough healthy fats in the diet and getting all of your micronutrients are an important part of helping to prevent cognitive decline relative to normal aging. The third thing is going to be exercise. Regular exercise improves circulation, and as a result is going to improve the delivery of oxygen, vital nutrients, and detoxification pathways in the brain. So getting exercise regularly is important. Plus, exercise is going to turn on genes which are associated with health and longevity. So let's say we're doing all of these things. We know we're still going to age, our body's still going to break down. So is there anything else that we can do to protect the health and the function of the brain? And it turns out that there is. So let's go back over to this study. Now, carnosine, I often refer to this as a miracle nutrient that everybody should take, but most people are unaware of. And that's because carnosine has so many remarkable benefits. Now, first thing, of course, is that carnosine is an antioxidant. It's naturally occurring in the human body. It's difficult to get from your diet. The body will take amino acids and make carnosine. And the levels of carnosine in our body, not surprisingly, decline with age. Now, carnosine is going to be stored in the muscle tissue, in the heart, and in the brain. And that should tell you a lot about its function. So in prior studies that we had done with the carnosine patch, we looked at its effects on athleticism. So could the carnosine patch improve strength and stamina and flexibility? And the answer is yes. We tested that in clinical studies with Dr. Lisa Tully. In other studies, we saw here doing electrointerstitial scanning, we showed that using the carnosine patch for 30 days had a beneficial effect on improving the function of the organs in the body. So Dr. Tom and Helen Budzinski had seen some clinical data on the use of carnosine as a nutrient to improve the function of the brain. And they wanted to see, well, would LifeWave's carnosine patch have that ability? So they set up this study. And again, you can just get this in the science section of the website. And by the way, just a brief note on Dr. Budzinski. He had developed the inertial guidance system for the SR-71. He had worked at Skunk Works as a scientist, so he was very, very well known. He passed away a few years ago, but he was very well known in the US as a prominent scientist, and we were very lucky to have the opportunity to work with him. A really, really great guy too. So in any case, they established this study, and you can see it was a pretty good sized study, 20 people in the treatment group and 20 people as a control. The other thing that they wanted to look at was the function of the heart. How would that respond to the carnosine patch? And of course, the main purpose is what's going to happen with long-term and short-term memory, the speed at which people process information, reaction time, and other measures of cognitive function. So we can skip down here and we can go to the results section and discussion. And the bottom line on this study is that the carnosine patch did achieve statistical significance at improvement in cognitive function. So carnosine patch is a good way to help support the overall health and function of the brain. Also, what they found in this study is that the carnosine patch could produce a relaxation effect on the heart and reduce stress. So that obviously would be very, very valuable. So this course was done 10 years ago. Technology changes, and at this point in the history of our company, people are very, very interested in the X39 patch. So would the X39 patch show any type of improvement in brain function? Let's take a look at that. So the world authority on copper peptide, because he was the one that discovered it and he's been researching it now for more than 45 years, is Dr. Laurent Picard. So you could just simply do a Google search on GHK-Cu, otherwise known as copper peptide, and you would see many of the studies that Dr. Picard has published. Excuse me. So Dr. Picard has looked at medical applications for copper peptide, cosmetic applications, and this particular case, going back to 2012, Dr. Picard wanted to find out, is it possible that copper peptide could play a role in the health and function of the brain? Now, why would he come to this conclusion and be interested in studying this? We know copper peptide is stored in the skin. Copper peptide is found in the blood, the urine, the saliva. That's found just about everywhere in the body. And of course, any life waver knows that copper peptide activates the stem cells. So what would happen now if we elevated copper peptide in people that were older? Would it have an effect on the brain? So this is an interesting study. And the first thing that I'm going to draw your attention to is the ability of copper peptide. And by the way, when I say copper peptide, that is GHK-Cu. They're one and the same thing. Copper peptide will function as an antioxidant, and it also has anti-inflammatory properties. So when we look at degenerative conditions in the human body and how the human body ages, one of the things that we see is that there is a decrease in the concentration of antioxidants and an increase in inflammatory chemicals. And this will have an adverse effect on our health, but also, of course, on the function of our brain. So any compound that has anti-inflammatory effects and acts like an antioxidant is potentially a nutrient that we would want to examine for improvement in the health of the brain. The second thing that I would draw your attention to is that copper peptide stimulates the formation of blood vessels. Now, let's take a nutrient that you probably have heard of called ginkgo biloba. So ginkgo has been known for decades as a naturally occurring nutrient or an herb that will improve blood flow. And as a result, it improves memory. Now, copper peptide, given that it can cause formation of blood vessels and improve circulation, this is another component where you would say, okay, if I can improve circulation of nutrients up to the brain, I might be able to improve cognitive function. And then lastly, the next thing that I want to draw your attention to is copper peptide as a gene regulator. Now, one of the symptoms of aging is that the gene expression is going to change. There are genes that get upregulated and genes that get downregulated, but it basically means the library of information that makes up who we are changes over time. And one of the remarkable things about copper peptide, again, discovered by Dr. Picard, is that it is very powerful gene modulator, meaning copper peptide can reset thousands of genes back to a younger, healthier state. So if we're looking at how the body changes over time and we're looking at brain function declining, if we could get those brain cells to start functioning like younger, healthier cells, obviously that is going to mean that we might be able to get better function of the brain. Now, what happens here in real life? Well, of course, if you were to take a look at this study, the conclusion is that copper peptide can play a role in improving cognitive function. But what did we find out in our own study? Okay, so for the first time, you're going to see one of the brain maps that was performed by Dr. Gaetan Chevalier. And bear in mind, Dr. Chevalier is a atomic physicist, and his specialty was in laser spectroscopy, and he was even at UCLA doing nuclear fusion research. So very, very bright guy. And when he got into biomedical research, he was interested at looking at the interaction that light would play and other forms of energy play on the human body. So it's been a wonderful working relationship with him over the years. Now, one thing I'll draw your attention to is that this study was performed on a woman 77 years of age. And that's important because we would most closely associate decline in brain function with people over the age of 50, 60, and 70. And we would normally think, okay, if someone is 70 and older, there's not really going to be an opportunity to get improvement in their brain function. But we're finding that this, in fact, is not the case. And even when people are over 60, 70, and 80, yes, you can still have restoration and improvement in brain function. So I wanted to draw that to your attention. Next, this graph right here, this image shows session 1, which is baseline. So before this woman used X39, she would be considered to be hyperactive. Session 2 shows what happens after just 3 weeks of using X39, and session 3 is after 6 weeks. Now, I'm only going to show you this one image. There's a lot more data here, but when you come to Las Vegas, you'll see the rest of it. And of course, we'll make this clinical study public after the Las Vegas event. But basically what was happening here is that her brain was going into a more calm and relaxed state, and this resulted in better brain function. So, what conclusions could we draw from all of this? Well, the first thing is that regardless of your age, if you have experienced any type of decline in your brain function, you go into a mental fog, maybe when you wake up you feel foggy, you don't remember things as well, you don't have to live with that condition. There are many things that you can do to improve. First thing you would say is make sure you're getting 7 or 8 hours of sleep each evening, definitely over 6 hours of quality sleep. You want to make sure that you're staying well hydrated. You want to make sure that you're getting essential fats in your diet, like from fish, the omega-3s. And you also want to make sure that you're exercising on a regular basis to improve your circulation. So if you do these basic things, then adding tools like the X39 and the Carnosine patch, you're going to be able to see some truly remarkable improvements in your overall health and well-being, and an improvement in your brain function. So that to me is really exciting, is that, you know, as an inventor, the thought of having a decline in brain function is pretty scary to me. So I love the idea that we have real data here that shows, yes, you can protect your brain function and improve your brain function as you age. That's really exciting. Okay, so we are going to go, and I want to thank all of you. We had great attendance tonight, and I see we have LifeWave family members from all over the world. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll go ahead and take some questions. Okay, the Y-age patches say to wear no more than 2 at a time. Why is that? Oh, that is a great question. When we have tested the patches, we have tested, let's say, Eon and glutathione. We've tested Eon and Carnosine and so forth. We only have one clinical study showing using all 3 Y-age patches at the same time. And by the way, that clinical study was quite successful. But we like to recommend things when we have clinical studies that show that those products work well together, and you're going to get a beneficial effect. So that's really the only reason. You could, for example, use the glutathione and the Carnosine patch during the day and the Eon patch at night. One benefit that you would get from that is the Eon patch has a relaxation effect on the nervous system, and you'll find that you're sleeping better. With the Carnosine patch at night, many people can't sleep. They feel that it keeps them mentally awake. And glutathione, we definitely do not recommend at night, only because people detox with the glutathione patch, and you may wake up with a headache. So if you want to use all 3 during the day, you could, but I might recommend, for a better effect, glutathione and Carnosine during the day and Eon at night. Okay, let's see, get some more questions here. Could you talk about whether or not X39 affects the increase of growth factors? So the clinical studies that we've done on X39 have been looking at some very basic things. First, we needed to prove that X39 elevated copper peptide. So we did urine and blood studies to prove that. Another thing that we wanted to look at with X39 was how is it affecting the metabolism? And this is something that Dr. Connor is going to be speaking about in Las Vegas, and she's got 2 clinical studies now examining this. But what we see with this is there's an improvement in the metabolism of amino acids, as one example. So for example, there's an upregulation of the amino acid leucine. And this is important, especially for athletes, that if you want to build more muscle, you have to be able to metabolize leucine. And there was about a 30% increase in leucine metabolism, which is quite significant. Now, when you increase copper peptide in the body, this is going to increase the number of circulating stem cells. And as stem cells replace damaged tissue and repair or replace older cells, they're going to be releasing growth factors in the process. The whole key to this, though, is copper peptide gets those cells to function like younger, healthier cells, so you'll have an improvement in growth factor release. Could you please work on a patch that stimulates tear production for those out there with dry eyes? I have to be honest with you, this is the first time I've ever gotten a request like that. I will take a look at it. Okay, can I pull up the Lauren Picard article in Science with a search? Oh, okay, so we don't have any of Dr. Picard's studies listed in the science section of the website, but it's very easy to find. If you simply go to Google and you type in GHK, or you can even type in copper peptide, you will very easily see published research by Dr. Picard. Most of the research out there is published by him, so you'll find plenty of it. Dr. Picard also, by the way, owns a company called Skin Biology, and he has copious amounts of research papers on that website. I will tell you that he is a great guy. I've had the privilege of communicating with him, and I will be an ardent supporter of Dr. Picard winning a Nobel Prize for his discovery of copper peptide. Okay, so this is a question coming from someone that's having sleep problems. They've tried silent nights and that hasn't helped. Any other suggestions? And I see you've tried Eon and that's helped a little bit. Okay, so there could be any number of, by the way, I'm not a medical doctor, and anything that I might recommend, you'd have to speak with your medical doctor about, and I certainly don't make any type of recommendations for treating any health conditions. These are just general things that I read in research for normal, healthy people. So let's say there are a number of possibilities when people are suffering with a problem sleeping. Sometimes this can be resolved quite easily. For example, release of melatonin from the brain is dependent upon a room being completely dark. So many people make the mistake of sleeping in a room with a light on or letting too much ambient light into the room. So the darker you make the room, the better. Another problem that people have is they are on their smartphones or their computers right up until the time they go to sleep, and this is a big mistake because the blue light coming off of these devices can keep you awake. So put away your smartphone and your computer at least an hour before going to sleep. Obvious things like eating late, caffeine, all going to affect sleep patterns. Now, another problem that people have, and I think it's getting more common today because we all lead such busy lives, is that our minds are racing with all kinds of thoughts, and we have a problem calming down. There is a amino acid called taurine, T-A-U-R-I-N-E. And I've been researching taurine metabolism because I find it interesting. And for men, taurine is found in high concentrations in the testicles, but scientists don't really know the reason why. And I have some suspicions as far as why the taurine is there, and that's why I'm doing that research. But in any case, taurine is found in the heart and in the brain. And when you increase production or intake of taurine, it will have the effect of relaxing the brain. So you could take, let's say, normal recommendations are 1,000 milligrams or even more of taurine. Again, I'm not a doctor, so speak with your healthcare practitioner. But taurine is a naturally occurring amino acid. and you may find that that helps and with what you've got. All right, we're at the bottom of the hour. Let me see if I can answer one or two more questions. Have you used X39 or Carnosine with children? No, we have not. And we also have not used either of those patches in attempting to treat any type of health condition. In the clinical studies that I showed you, we use the patches on normal, healthy adults over the age of 40. In theory, you could use them on children, but you'd have to do that with a doctor's approval. With any of our products, if you wanted to try them and you didn't see an effect, you could always return them within 30 days for a complete refund. Someone is asking here, can you suggest patches for neuropathy? Yes, provided that we're talking about pain relief. So there's a number of ways we could go at this. First, I would use X39, and you could apply it anywhere. You could apply it behind the neck or below the belly button. It works anywhere you apply it. And that's going to help regulate the pain and inflammation. The other obvious choice would be the LifeWave patches. And you could put those directly either underneath the feet, or there's a place you could put them on the top of the feet. Again, a number of potential locations, but right at the ankle bone on the top. There's an acupuncture point there where there's a depression. In acupuncture, it's called stomach 40. Don't worry about the acupuncture part of it, but white on right, tan on left. And you'll find that that helps to control pain and inflammation. But X39 patch, definitely. Can the energy patches be worn with X39? Yeah, right now, as a matter of fact, I have Carnosine on the back of my neck, X39 below the belly button, and I have a set of energy patches on the inside of my ankles. So yes. Which patch do you recommend for circulation, microvascular circulation? I would recommend X39. That article that I was pulling out before, we go right over here. X39, or GHK, I should say, stimulates blood vessel growth. And as you read more and more about copper peptide, it is associated with improved circulation. Let me see if I can get one more. We're definitely past the hour. Do stem cells and HGH do relatively the same thing? No, not exactly, because HGH is going to trigger the release of IGF-1, and IGF-1 is a growth factor. But there are other growth factors. So there's IGF-1, IGF-2, VEGF. There's other growth factors that do other things. So HGH, we normally associate that with release of IGF-1. No HGH patch in our future. You don't want that. So many questions. I get, goodness. Dozens of questions. I can't get to them all. My apologies, but we got to quite a few. I'm going to answer this last one here because I find it interesting. Can you use LifeWave in addition to painkillers? Well, technically, the answer is yes. Sure, why not? Again, provided you have a doctor's approval, there shouldn't be any interaction between the two. Now, that said, it's very well known in phototherapy that light competes with the same receptors as drugs. So in other words, you may or may not get an effect with LifeWave when you're taking medication. Now, what you could do is you could, if you had severe pain, you weren't sure if it was going to work, you're in a desperate situation, you could take the painkillers, apply the patches, Then a number of hours later, when the drugs wear off, you can see, well, maybe you're out of pain and you don't need any more painkillers. That might be one way to do it. But it is, in fact, very well known that drugs and light compete. Also, if you're in that much pain, I would recommend looking at either X39 or Eon along with IceWave. You'll find that works very, very well. Time for me to get some water, by the way. I've been doing webinars all day and I am past my water intake time. So thank you all for being here. It's been a pleasure. Really appreciate your time. Hope you enjoyed the webinar. And I hope to see you all next weekend in Las Vegas. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.